Yeah.
The what?
You have a few of your nephews napping during the year.
Yeah. Listen, we put them to sleep. That's what at least we can do one thing. We put them to sleep. That's not bad, right?
If it's going to help my kids, I would put them on.
Right. Yaakov, you can have career as a babysitter, Yaakov. It's a new career.
Maybe Tucker.
Zoom
Maybe
babysitting. I like
Zoom
it. You can see 30
babysitter.
kids at a time.
Yeah, put them on the shear and knock them out. That's
Before you know it, that service is going to be out now that you just said it.
Just the cord, the one that's plugged into the light box.
Friday was a beauty.
maybe.
Knocked my
I
kid
wouldn't
out.
be surprised if it was Camp Zoomer.
Right. It's almost the next. You can almost also put on like Kabbalah Shabbos songs and put people to sleep that way too, right? Right. The shear and Kabbalah Shabbos, those seem to do the trick, right? Okay, so let's go. So tonight we have tonight is not an easy daf. For those that did the daf already today's daf today's daf is no walk in the park, and that's not no pun intended having to do with today's daf. Park, big empty fields, whatever it is. But okay, so we're up to the Mishna.
I just spent 3 days with my kids in parks. That's not an easy thing to do.
The what?
I just spent 3 days with my kids in parks.
What?
A walk in the park is not that much fun.
Okay, I hear that. Yeah. You should have built Eruvin with them. Maybe they would be more interested in that. Although I don't think so. But yeah. Anyways, okay. So Mishnah Tesvav base Shiara. Right. So you have a Shara. Shiara is what do you call it? How do you touch a Shiara? A group, like a traveling caravan. Right. So Shiara Shechantzah Bebika. So they decided to encamp. You know, they're traveling on Shabbos, a traveling camp. Oh, right. And then on Shabbos, they're in a big empty field. So now they have to be able to carry. The Shaila actually does come up. People go camping on Shabbos, and then they ask, how do they put up an eruv around their campsite? Right? So if you kifu a kli behema, and you surround it with clay behema, so metatlim b'soichim, if you do that, you take the clay behema, and we'll see in the Gemara more specific about this, you can carry inside it. Of course, the fence has to be 10 tefachim high. You can't have more open spaces than the amount of binyan, of the building. It's not really a building, it's made up of clay behema. Right? Kol pirza, and then the other rule is kol pirza shikeser amos materis, and shikepesach yeser kepesach. I'm sorry, any pirza that's like 10 amos wide, it's mutter, because that's up until 10 amos, we consider that's a doorway. Yes, and Mikan also, right? We had this a few times. This is the actual source. Right, opening then 10, then it's going to be usher. Right, so because I said over that story last night with the eruv that we put together the eruv on Friday night when the eruv fell down. That was the only reason why we were allowed to ask a guy to drive. I just want to make it clear. The only reason we were allowed to ask a guy to drive a car, that the car should be part of the eruv, was because it was bein hashmoshes. Right, you can't ask. You would not be able to. At least I don't think we'd be able to do an issa d'oraisa, which driving a car is an issa d'oraisa. I'm not so sure we'd be allowed to ask a guy to drive a car on Shabbos in order to build an eruv. Meaning, okay, so you leave the kids home or whatever it is. And it wasn't like it was a lack of babysitters.
You asked outright, or you were mashman to them?
It was bein hashmashos.
No, it's bein hashmashos. It's bein hashmashos. You could ask outright. Yeah. So that's the only reason why it was done. If it was on Friday night, I don't know. I don't know what we would have done, but I can't imagine we would have allowed a guy to drive a car on Shabbos just to build an eruv. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, but that's basically what's going on in this Mishnah. So you're in the wild and you need to make yourself an eruv so you could carry. Okay. So itmar. So again, just let's make clear. You have to make sure that there's more mechitzas than openings. You could have an opening up. You could have multiple openings of up to 10 amas each opening, as long as there's more fence than open space, and it has to also be 10 tefachim high. Right? So Zog the Gemara, yeah. So itmar paritz ka'imid. Right? Let's say you have 50-50. There's 50% space and there's 50% fence, or the equivalent of fences. So Rav Papa Amar Mutter, Rav Huna Brei Rav Yeshua Amar also. Rav Papa says it's Mutter. Rav Huna Brei Yeshua says it's also. Rav Papa Amar Mutter Hachi Agmarei Rachmana L'Maisha. Right, this is the way the Torah taught to Moshe. Loisif Reitz Ruba. You shouldn't have rive. It shouldn't be rive. But if it's 50-50, then it's fine. Rav Huna Brei Yeshua Amar also Hachi Agmarei Rachmana L'Maisha Kedar Ruba. Right, you have to build it. You have to build rive of it. If it's only 50-50, then it's also right. So it's interesting. So now we have a machlokes of what the halacha l'Moshe Misina was. Right. It's not so common that you have a machlokes about exactly what the halacha l'Moshe Misina. You would think if it's halacha l'Moshe Misina, it should be pretty clear cut exactly what it is. But here we're saying that it's a machlokes Rav Papa and Rav Huna Brei Rav Yeshua. So now the Gemara for the next Amud and change goes through.
Why would we say
riots.
that halacha Mishna Moshe Misina is clear cut? I mean, I don't remember anything from then.
What do you mean?
So why would we think that that's so clear cut?
What that if it's halacha l'Moshe Misina, so then it's meaning you may have a machlokes whether something is halacha l'Moshe Misina or we learn out something else. But if they both agreeing that's halacha l'Moshe Misina and they can't agree what the halacha l'Moshe Misina said.
I'm saying we agree about we there's a machlokes on just about every single thing. So why would we think that there wouldn't be on halacha Moshe Misina?
No, because halacha Moshe Misina is usually it was taught to Moshe, and Moshe taught it to us straight. In the Torah, there's machlokes how to learn the psukim, right? You know what I'm saying? Okay, it was a parenthetical point. It's not, but I'm saying like halacha Moshe Misina is tefillin is black and it's going to be ritzuas, then they have to be turned, they have to have knots and all that. That's halacha Moshe Misina, right? So that's what we do. Anyways, okay. So now we're gonna have for the next Amud and change different rayas, pro and con. Well, I don't know if it's pro or con, but whether it should be what's the story with half and half. Right. So Tanan, below you pierces Yiseres ala binyan. It's mashma, right? The Mishna says you should not have openings more than the building. Ha binyan mutter. It's mashma that if it's the same amount that it's mutter. So right, so it seems to be a raya to Rav Papa that 50-50, 50% fences, 50% space is no problem. So the Gemara says, Loitema, binyan mutter. Don't say that the diak is if it will be like the binyan, it's mutter. Ela ema im binyan yeser ala pirza mutter. Be medayik that if there's more building than the opening, then it's going to be mutter. But if it would be half and half, then maybe it would be also. Ava kabinyan mai also. So now what do you want to be medayik? But if it was the same amount, 50-50 would be also ihaki listening lo you pierces kibinyan, right? Why don't you just say so? The opening should not be the same amount of binyan. Why are you saying in the Mishnah it's more as long as the pierces yiseris al binyan? Just say the pierces should not be the same as the binyan. If that's what's also meaning, if the diak again, the Gemara wanted to make a diak from the Mishnah. It says below you pierces yiseris al binyan, right? The spaces shouldn't be more than the fences, right? That's mashma that if it's 50-50. Then it's mutter. So we're saying no, it doesn't mean that. It means it's mashma that if it's more pirza is more than the binyan, if the space is more than the fences, then it's a problem. Good. So then why don't you say in the Mishnah, below you pirzas kibinyan? You shouldn't have openings the same amount as the fences, right? So the Gemara says kasha. That's a good kasha. Okay. So I don't know why that's not just the proof right then and there. That the Mishnah, which we're going to see really in the truth is we're going to see in a blot from now that is going to be the ultimate.
What's the hava mean of this? What's the Gemara's hava mean? I don't understand. The Gemara's second side is like jumping 2 levels. The Gemara is saying the Mishnah says one way. The Gemara says but you could just medayik that go 2 levels the other way. What does that mean? The Mishnah is mamish mashma. The way the Mishnah says it is that you could only assume so much. You can't go to the other extreme. That's what the Gemara is doing when the Gemara says, Ella ema im binyan yesha al pirtz and mutter. That's the other extreme of it. That's not what the Mishnah is mashma at all.
You're right. I think that's what
the
Gemara is
right,
saying.
That's the kasha, but like what's meaning how did the Gemara ever be medayik the other way? That's what I'm asking. Like the Gemara has it at its side.
And Hanami, I don't know. I'm not sure. Yeah, I hear. I don't know. Anybody have a pshat in this? I mean, the kasha is pretty obvious, and not only that, but the Gemara in the blot from now is going to seem to say that the Mishnah is mashma like Rav Papa. It's just, I'm meaning it's a kasha on the other Mandamar.
So the Gemara, they bring down the article brings down that the Rizvah speaks about it. I don't know what he says though.
I don't know either. I don't know. I didn't look it up. Yeah. Okay, good. If you happen to look it up, let me know. Yeah. Okay. So right. Right. So this case, a lot of these cases, right? It's a lot of Eruvin has to do with the sukkah, right? So if you take on your schach, right? So you decide that you're gonna be cheap on your schach. So instead of putting schach totally all over your sukkah, so then you take out some wood boards from your beds, right? Or stam wood boards laying around, and you put half your schach, you put half your sukkah, you put schach, and half your sukkah, you put these boards. Right? So now what's the deal? Do we look at it? And it's 50-50 exact. So what's the story? So if there's enough space in between these boards that have schach, right? Look at the pictures that Yuri posted, right? So if there's the same exact space, then it's kosher, right? So what do you see? That when it's 50-50, it's kosher. So if it's 50-50 kosher by sukkah, it should be 50-50 kosher by eruv too. So Gemara says, no, we're talking about where there's enough space to take the schach and or the beams that you put up there to put it in and out. Meaning, in science, I guess it's physics, right? In order to, you can have two things that are perfectly spaced, but if you want to move it in and out, you're going to need slightly more space. So if you're going to want to move out the schach from in between these boards, you're going to need slightly more space of schach than of the wood beams. So that's what we're talking about. So the Gemara says, but it is possible to make it specific to a man. Meaning, yes, you're right. If you're gonna move the schach in and out from between the beams, you're going to have it. You're going to need a little bit more space. So therefore, there's going to be more schach than the schach puzzle. But
can I just ask though?
To get it perfectly, there is a possibility to get it perfect. What are you saying?
Can I just ask though? How is this applicable to contemporary Eruvin now? Consider we don't use walls, or we might use a wall, but I mean generally it's the big wide open spaces.
No, that's true. But sometimes you could have a fence. Sometimes you could have a fence that that has spaces.
In that case, then it must comply with this particular thing. But what if you're just using telephone poles and wire?
No, that's Tzuras HaPesach. We're talking about right. You're right. Then it has no application. It has no application.
Right. Because there's no wall there. There's no wall there. There's nothing of any substance there.
Correct. Right. We're not. Most of our eruvs are being made with Tzuras HaPesach. And what we said last week, the Rambam holds that according to the Rambam, those eruvs are not good. If it's not 50% wall, the eruvs are not good. If the Tzuras HaPesachs are bigger than 10 amas, which almost all of them are. Yeah. But anyway, so the Gemara says but the bottom line is you could get it exactly 50-50. No, it's talking about where there was, you made it a little bit bigger. So that's what we're saying. So it's not meaning the Braysa sounds like it's exactly the same. So we're saying, no, it's talking about where there's slightly more schach. But if it would be perfect, 50-50, then a chanami, the sukkah would be puzzle and the eruv would be puzzle. This is interesting. What he's saying here is that what's going, Rabba's pshat is that if you put the boards this way, so you got to put the schach this way, right? It's crisscrossed. It's not. We were thinking that it's in a row. Meaning you have one row of a board, which is schach puzzle, then next to it a row of schach kosher, then another row, then another row. That's not what we're saying. Now we're saying that if you put it this way, then you put it that way, right? And therefore, it's going to go, then you're definitely going to have more schach, right? So the schach is obviously going to go on top of the, there's the schach. There's a lot more schach than there is schach puzzle, and therefore it's bottle in the schach. Right, it gets all. We look at it like it's all mixed in, and basically your sukkah is covered with schach, right? All the schach puzzle under it. We don't care. It all gets mixed in. which is interesting because that's what a lot of sukkahs, you have the beams that hold up the schach. How come those beams don't passel the sukkah, right? So that's this case where it's getting all mixed in, which is the practical application of this, since it is coming close to sukkahs, is that some of the kashrut agencies, I think this would apply from this case. Some of the kashrut agencies, like, so you have the mats, right? That the Jewish sellers have to sell for more money in order for them to make profit, right? But some say that there's a certain type of mat made in Home Depot or made in Lowe's or whatever it is that if you use it, then you can. It's much cheaper and you can use it, but you have to use it correctly. Which the main way to use it correctly is you have to lay out the mat in the opposite direction. Sort of what this Gemara is saying. Meaning, if the wood is going this way, then you got to lay the mat this way. So therefore, that you're relying on the wood boards to hold up the schach. It's not exactly this case, but that would be the practical application of this scenario where you would have to put schach pasel one way and the schach kosher the other way, so that it properly rests on the wood.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, but this wouldn't work according to the Chazon Ish, right?
Well, it would theoretically you could do it if you don't nail.
But it's pasel. It's pasel wood. I'm saying you're using the same type of thing like a screw.
Well, I don't know. Well, they're talking about where those mats are not made. The mats themselves are not pasel. The question
I'm
is
talking about the case in the
metal?
Gemara. I'm talking about the case in the Gemara, not the mats.
Oh, that's why I thought you found the case in the Gemara. Who says this metal? Who says this metal?
But I thought something that would make it pasel, no?
You're right, but no. But these boards are bigger than 3 tefachim, so therefore they're pasel, not because they're metal. Right? Yeah. Or no, it could be they are metal too. You're right. If they're metal, then you're right. 100%. The Chazon Ish for sure would not allow it, right? Unless the schach will stay up anyways. You could have it if it's a very small sukkah and the schach is hanging out on the walls and you don't really need these things to hold up the schach, then it would work according to the Chazon Ish. Yeah, but that's a good point. Okay, so Toshima, Shiyara shechantzah b'bikah. If you have a shiyara, I would call it, what is it? A caravan. That's encamped in a field, b'kifur b'gemalin, and you surrounded it with camels. But Eichef is what do you call it? We had that way back in Shabbos. Saddles.
Saddle.
Yeah. Ba'vitin. Saddles. Thank you. Right. Ba'vitin. Rashi says it's pillows. Yeah. B'shlifin. And the shlifin is bundles. Rashi says masuz is bundles. B'konim, right, with reeds. Bekolcha is kelach is stalks. Yeah. Metaltal and besaycha. Then you can carry inside. But with actually you've been gamal as long as you don't have in between each camel the same amount as a camel. In between the saddles, a saddle, meaning it has to be, the spaces have to be smaller than the things that are encompassing the spaces, which we had a few days ago. And between each pillow, you cannot have the same amount of space as a pishma. That 50-50, right, is what is okay.
How's this a raya?
What do you mean?
Shouldn't all it together be the issue? Meaning, from the Braysa, it's mashma, each thing individually is looked at as you have to have it equal.
No, I think so.
Why isn't it about the space?
First of all, I said it's okay. If it's mashma, no, it's mashma adar. If it's 50-50, then it's not okay, right? That's what it's saying. As long as it's not exact.
I know, but what I meant is that
you're saying you're looking at the whole circumference, right?
Why don't you look at the whole circumference? Why are we looking at each individual thing as its own? You have to draw your own conclusion for each one.
Right. So I think that's just, well, there's another issue, which is that we haven't gotten to it yet, but we have so far been looking at the total circumference of the eruv. But there is a concept that even we look at each side in its own. We look at each side as its own. We make a cheshbon from each side.
Right, but you could have a vitim, and you could have a vitim and shlifen together on one side, and it wouldn't be about the individual.
That's true. But
more than 50%.
100%. So I think the Gemara is just understanding it as it's referring to the entire circumference. That's what I think. And a chanami, if it would be more, if you would have more, if it would only be a few spots that it would be open like that, then it would be fine. Even though maybe in the Gemara Vaita we'll have to see. So anyway, so hachanami the Gemara answers it's talking about where it has the space going in and out, the same way we answered with the schach. Okay, fine. So then Tashma. Now this raya is a long raya. Tashma. Nimtza, there's going to be three scenarios here of different types of mechitza situations. Nimtza ata oimer, but this is referring to Klayim. We have to make it very clear. This is not referring to eruv on Shabbos. This next Braysa is referring to, like we had last week, right? We had that if you want to take in a kerem, you want to plant a vineyard, and then you want to plant wheat next to it, you have to have a space of at least 4 amas, right? Or you have to put up walls in order to separate the grapes from the wheat or whatever it is that you're going to grow. Otherwise, it's Klayim, right? So Toshima, Nimtza Atayim Shalish Midas Mechitzas. There's 3 types of measurements by mechitzas. First one is Kolshu Pachas Mishloisha. Anything that's less than 3, you have to make sure that there isn't between each beam. Let's say you have a beam of 3, not a beam, a pillar of 3. Then you can't have more than 3 tefachim until the next one. As long, because you have to make sure that a gedi can't go through there, right? So this is lavud, right? This is called lavud. Now, if you have lavud, as we know, lavud is anything up, at least according to the Rabbanon, anything up to 3 tefachim. That makes it as if it's totally sealed, even though lemaisa it's open, but you have to make sure that it's you got, if as long as it's within 3 tefachim. As long as you have the beams, not the beams, I keep saying beams, a pillar, and the pillar could have any width, as long as each pillar or each reed or each lechi or 1x2, 2x4, whatever it is, as long as each one is within 3 tefachim, that's look like that it's completely enclosed, right? Fine, that's one. Kolshu gimel umi gimel ad dalid, but let's say the pillars are 3 or 3 to 4 tefachim wide, right? That's the next case. Then again, the first case was the pillars are less than 3 tefachim. The second case is that the pillars are 3 tefachim or from 3 to 4. That's going to be an important point that the Gemara is going to bring up later. Then you have to make sure that each, like we just said, that each one can't have the space in between each one of these pillars can't be more than the actual pillar. Because then what's going to happen is you're going to have, right, which means it's going to be 50-50, where the rye is going to come from. And if the opening is more than the pillars, then even opposite the aimed is going to be usher. Meaning, don't think that, let's say you have a fence, you have an opening, you have a pillar that's 3.5 tefachim. Then you have a space that's 4 tefachim, then a pillar 3.5 tefachim. So you might think that you at least can carry right next to the pillar. You cannot. If you look at the whole circumference and there's more space than the pillars, then you can't carry anywhere. Okay? Then what's the next one? Kolshu dalid ume arba ad eser amas. Right? As long as it's 4 tefachim. Right? Tosfos says there are some that are gutters that's 4 amas. That's incorrect, Tosfos says. It means, because again, it says, we discussed this also last week. It says dalid. How am I supposed to know dalid what? Right? Dalid tefachim, dalid amas. Right? So kolshu dalid ume arba ad asa. So it means here tefachim ume arba, and from 4 ad eser amas, right, until 10 amas. Tzarich shaloye bein zeh lezeh kemaloi. You have to make sure that there isn't between each one the same amount that's in between. Shaloye paretz ka'imid, so that we don't say that there shouldn't be more, the equivalent, the equal space between each pillar. Vim paretz ka'imid keneged aimed mutter keneged paretz also. But if you do have it exactly 50-50, right, the open space, the paretz is open ka'imid. So keneged aimed mutter, then carrying next to them is mutter. Keneged paretz also. Then opposite the open spaces, that's also. Right? So meaning the shot in that is that we look at each space like it's its own pillar, having nothing to do with the spaces. The ending Gemara says, but if there's more Amud, more fences, more pillars than the open space, then we know that even then opposite the open space is also mutter. Right? But if there's more space, if there's a space more than 10 amas, then it's obviously also. Right? If they have poles that get thinner on the top, and they made, right, we had this before, and they made these vines, right, peah vines. So they took these grapevines and they put it on top of these poles. Then even more than 10 is mutter. But again, that's only for Klayim, not for Shabbos. Fine. So now, Katani Miyas. So after all these cases, what's the bottom line? Katani Miyas, Reisha Megimel Vad Dalid, right? In the Reisha it says from 3 to 4, it's as long as you can have from 3 to 4 tefachim, a pillar, it's fine. As long as it's bein zelazeh kimaloi, it shouldn't be exactly the same. So who's that like? It's clearly saying that 50-50 is a problem for Klayim, and it's surely going to be a problem for eruv. So to give to the Rapapa, so that slugs up Rapapa. So then Amar Lach Rapapa is going to give the same teretz that he said before. Rapapa will tell you, my miloi nichnas v'yotze. No, it means nichnas v'yotze. When it says that it has to be wide enough, the pillars have to have the same more than the same, exactly the same. It means that there's nichnas v'yotze, so therefore they're actually going to be more amud. There's going to be more fence or pillars than space. That's also a svara that makes sense to say this. If the space is bigger than the Amid, afka neged the Amid also, then even neged the Amid is also haka Amid mutter. Mashma that if it's like the 50-50, then it's going to be mutter. Shmamino that sounds like Rapapa. So then if that's the case, then it should be a kasha on Rav Huna Breder Rav Yeshua, who says that 50-50 is also. But according to you, the Seifa says if there's more fence than there is break opening, after neged aparutz mutter. Even neged the opening is mutter hakiparutz. But if it would be 50-50, then it's also. So now basically we have a stira from the Reisha to the Seifa. So Seifa kasha Rav Papa, Reisha kasha Rav Huna Breder Rav Yeshua. Right? The Seifa is a kasha on Rav Papa, and the Reisha is a kasha Rav Huna Breder Rav Yeshua. So the more answer Seifa the Rav Papa like kasha. The Seifa is not a kasha to Rav Papa. I didn't turn a Reisha parutz meruv alayimid. Since in the Reisha you had to say that there's more space than the Aimid, then it's no good. So Tana Seifa Aimid meruv ala parutz. That's why the Seifa said it's Aimid meruv ala parutz, even though it doesn't mean that. It means even if it's 50-50. Reisha, the Rav Huna Breder Yeshua like kasha. The Reisha is not a kasha Rav Huna Breder Yeshua. I did the boy lemisni Seifa Aimid meruv ala parutz. Tana Reisha parutz meruv ala Aimid. Right, since the Seifa says there's more, it's talking about a case where there's more pillars or more fence than there is opening. So therefore, the ratio said it too, even though really the ratio can be 50-50. So now the Gemara says Bishlama. This Gemara, by the way, don't if we're not hopping, first of all, don't think that it's if you think it sounds like I have this perfectly fine, then looks are deceiving. That's A. B is that it's not shy to do this Gemara in 45 minutes. It's not possible to do it perfectly. We have to try and get whatever we can get out of it, right? At the end of the day, we'll get the Maskonas HaGemara. So, but Bishlam the Rapapa, according to Rapapa, it's good. We didn't mix the Mishna, the Braysa didn't mix up cases, right? Ella, which we'll see in the Vaita what this means. Ella Rav Huna Breder Rav Yeshua. But according to Rav Huda Breder Yeshua, listening, why don't you just mix the cases together? Why do you have to have like 5 or 6 separate cases? Why not mix the cases and say, the listening and teach, anything that's less than 3 and 3, you don't need to have in between each one. I mean, you have to make sure that there is less than 3 in between each one. Yeah, so then the Gemara answers, no, that's not, you can't ask to combine these cases. Mishum Deloy Domi Psul the Reisha, the Psul the Seifa. The Psul in the Reisha is different than the Psul in the Seifa. Why? Psul the Reisha, Kadei L'Shalo Yizdakar Gdiva Bas Achas. The reason why the Reisha has to be less than 3 tefachim in between, less than 3 tefachim of space in between each pillar is because you got to make sure that it has to be less than what a Gedi can get through. A goat can't get through it. Psul of the Seifa Shalei Paratz Kaimed, but the Psul of the Seifa is a different reason. There it's because you can't have more space than an Amud, having nothing to do with lavud. Fine. Okay. So that's the end of that. So basically, there's nothing from this whole long price of all these unique cases. It is what's the word I'm looking for? It's not. You can't prove anything. There's a better word than that.
Inconclusive.
Inconclusive. Thank you very much. Perfect. That's the word I was looking for. It is inconclusive from this Braysa, which way to go. Now the Gemara is going to discuss the 3 and the 4, right? Because it said 3. Right? Again, we had a Machlokes Rabbanon and Reb Shimon Gamliel. Rabbanon hold that lavud is 3. Reb Shimon Gamliel holds lavud is 4. In this Braysa, it sounds like it's doing both. Right? The first line said 3, and then the next line said 3 to 4. Right? So the Gemara says, Pachas Mishleisha money. Right? The first part of Braysa where it says less than 3, who holds that? Rabbanani. Dami Pachas Mishleisha Amrin lavud. Shleisha Amrin lavud. Less than 3 we say lavud. 3 itself, we don't say lavud. Aim a seifa, but what about the seifa? Kolshu Shleisha, if it's 3, Umishleisha Va'ad Arba, and it's from 3 to 4. Right? Hold on, turn the daf. Asan Reb Shimon Gamliel. That's going according to Reb Shimon Gamliel. The Amar Pachas Mi'arba lavud. That it's less than 4 is lavud. Di Rabbanon. Because if it's Rabbanon Mishloisha Va'ad Arba, you're saying from 3 until 4. Shloisha Va'arba Chadu. Shloisha. If once it's 3 tefachim according to Rabbanon, it's from 3 and on is the same din. Right? According to Reb Shimon Gamliel, you could say something up to 4 is different. But for the Rabbanon, Shloisha Va'arba is Chadu. It's one case. Right? So how could it be? So Amar Abaye Midireisha Rabbanon Seifa Nami Rabbanon. So the Reisha and the Seifa are both Rabbanons. Umayde Rabbanon, the call the Mishra Kenegdoi. Right? The Rabbanon Umayde, if you want to be mater to carry opposite a walled part of this contraption that you're building in the field, in order for it to be able to carry next to the pillar, you have to have 4. Right? So it comes out the Rabbanah saying a chumrah, that even though normally lavud is okay, but if you want to allow the people that are inside this eruv, right? I'm sorry. I knew I was going to do this. It's talking about klayim. It's klayim. I forgot. I kept warning myself. That's why I kept saying this. It's talking about klayim, not eruv. See, all right. I apologize. We're talking about klayim here, right? Yeah. The call the Mishra Kenegdoi, let's say, meaning, so now you have the fence, right? So you need the fence to separate between the grapes and the grain, let's say, right? But what happens in the spaces in between, right? There's no fence there, so how come it's not klayim? So that's what the Rabbanan is saying, that if you want to allow them, you want to allow planting, yeah, on the opposite side of a wall that has a lot of openings, then you're going to need to have pieces of wood that are at least 4 tefachim, right?
Maybe I'm trying to clear. I don't think this is even a question. I'm just trying to clarify this. But what does the Gemara's these cases in the Seifa have to do with lavud? Aren't we talking about walls that are next to each other, and it's a question of Aimika parts or parts Gaiman or not? What does that have to do with lavud? Isn't lavud how close to the ground it is?
No, lavud is anytime you have anything within 3 tefachim is lavud, right? So if the original case of this Braysa would be givaldic, anything that's, as long as something's within 3 tefachim, that's considered enclosed. There's never an issue, right? That's what we thought, right? But now we're saying that the Rabbanon have a chumrah, that they're saying that if you want to be able to plant opposite a fence that has space, that's meaning I'm sorry, I'm being a little unclear. Let's say I have a lavud fence, right? I want to plant. I have my vineyard, and now I want to plant grain on the other side of this fence. Bottom line is I'm putting up a little stick that's an inch wide, and then another one within 3 tefachim, 2.99 tefachim away, and then another one. Bottom line is, what kind of fence is that to stop klayim? Right? It's not. It's almost all totally open. So the Rabbanan is saying that then they would want something for 4 tefachim. that would be chashiv, and if not, then it's not chashiv, right? Then they would answer it, yeah. Meaning they say that lavud, we say lavud, that's without a doubt. But for this, there's a chumrah by klayim, yeah. That's basically what it is. Does that make any sense, Akiva, or meaning we're saying lavud side to side too. It's really going to be in the next Mishnah too. Maybe it'll get a little clearer in the next Mishnah. Fine. Rava Amar, the sefer of Shimon, right? Rava goes the opposite way. He says, "May the sefer of Shimon Gamliel, Reisha Namid of Shimon Gamliel." The sefers of Shimon Gamliel, then the Reishas also. Okay, so then why does the Reisha say 3 tefachim? It should say 4 tefachim. V'chi Amar of Shimon Gamliel, Amrina lavud. And when did Rav Shimon Gamliel say we say lavud is 4? Hanimi l'lamala. That's only above. Havalamata. But if it's on the bottom, if it's a mechitza that Gedim would go under it, then we don't say lavud, right? Which we had before. Now this next Gemara we had before also. So Tashima, right? So we said you have a wall that has mostly doors and windows. It's mutter. Now, if it's mostly doors and windows, that means it mostly has open spaces. So we say, then, but you got to make sure that there's at least more. There's more oimid. There's more. How do we call it again? More fence than the space. So Gemara says, "Sheruban salkadaitach." Can you say it's right? You just said that most of the. How can you say in one sentence that most of the wall is made out of windows and doors, and then say that it has to be mostly walls? It can't be. It doesn't. Those two don't fit. Ella sheriba ben psachim b'chaloinus mutter. If you put many windows and doors in there, then it's going to be mutter, right? But as long as there's enough, there's at least. Well, it says that should be more wall than opening. So the Gemara's mashma kapara. It's also, but if it's 50-50. Then it's usher. Tiyufta to Rapapa, tiyufta. So it's a tiyufta on Rapapa. We slug up Rapapa. Ve'ilchas to Kavasei to Rapapa. And the halacha is like Rapapa, right? So we had this also a few blot ago. The Gemara just said tiyufta to Rapapa. We slug up Rapapa. And then the Gemara says, but the halacha is like Rapapa. Right? Tiyufta ve'ilchas. We're saying it's a kasha, and then we're saying the halacha is like him. The Gemara says, in Mishum Tadaika Masnis and Kavasei, because we have the Mishna. The Mishnah, like we said almost a blot ago, is mashma like him. The Tanan lo yu pirtzas yiseres al binyan. You shouldn't have pirtzas more than a binyan. Hakib binyan, mutter. But if it would be 50-50, then it's mutter. So since the Mishnah is mashma like Rapapa, even though the Braysa is mashma like Rav, who was it? I don't remember. Hold on, let me go back to the daf. It was Rav Huna Braid Rav Yeshua, right? So basically, we have a Braysa that's mashma like Rav Huna Braid Rav Yeshua, and we have a Mishnah like Rapapa. So the Mishnah takes precedence over the Braysa, and therefore we are going to pasken like Rapapa. See that, but the problem, what I don't understand. I mean, one of the many things that I don't understand from tonight, but this one at least I could understand what I don't understand. Till now, I don't even know if I understood anything, right? But here is it. Who's saying tiyufta the Papa tiyufta? Is that the Braysa? Is that the Gemara?
Gemara.
Right? So what's the Gemara saying? That the Braysa is a tiyufta on Rav Papa.
Yeah.
And then you turning around and saying the Allah is like Rav Papa.
Yeah.
So why are you saying the words tiyufta on Rav Papa? Meaning the Braysa, so is that what it is? That the Braysa is a tiyufta on Rav Papa tiyufta. But then right, we say the second time, we say tiyufta the Rav Papa, and then it's tiyufta. So he slugged up, but then we turn around and say, well, we're paskening like him. Why? Because there's a Mishnah, right? But the Chayr, that Mishnah, we left off on the bottom of Tes Bavam and Beis, right? Akiva, that's what you were asking. We left off with Kasha, right? It was Kasha on Rav Huna Braid Rav Yeshua. So now we have, I don't know. There it didn't say Tiyufta. There it said Kasha, right? Here we say Tiyufta, but we pasken like Rav Papa. Okay, I don't know. I'm not sure what the pshat is. Why say the lashon of tiyufta? Didn't say it on the Rav Huna Braid Rav Yeshua tiyufta. Just said kasha, right? And we're passing like Rav Papa. Okay, fine. Okay, Zok the Mishnah. Yeah. Now we have a new Mishnah to get confused with. Yeah. So Zok the Mishnah. Makif and shloisha chavalim zel malam izeh, zel malam izeh. You can you can make an eruv with 3 ropes, one on top of the other. As long as you don't have more space in between each rope, more than 3 tefachim, because then it's not lavud, right? And shir chavalim v'uvyon yeser al tefach, and the thickness of the ropes should be more than a tefach. That all together with the spaces, you'll have 10 tefachim, which we know is the minimum height. Yeah. Now, the practical application for those that at least let's get something practical out of this. Another practical thing is, anybody have canvas sukkahs? I imagine a lot of them has canvas sukkahs. So they call it what they call them the lavud straps. Yeah. Like it was, and in the old days, the canvas sukkahs didn't have it, but then everybody started getting nervous about the wind blowing the canvas. So the eitzah that they did was they made lavud straps, which is that all these new canvas sukkahs, they come with a strap, right, that goes 3 tefachim, and then it comes with these little indentations in the poles of the sukkah, and you slide in the strap, and you put it all around the sukkah, 3 walls, and then 3 tefachim higher than that, you put another one, and then another one. It goes up to 4, and it goes above 10, and then those you pull them taut. And then even if you have no walls on your sukkah at all, even if your what do you call it? Even if your type of sukkah that I say it's called?
Canvas.
Canvas, thank you. Even if your canvas sukkah, the whole wall blows away, you're still going to have a kosher sukkah because you have this lavud wall, which is exactly what this Mishnah is talking about. So that's the practical way we use it. Now, the Mishnah here is trying to use the minimum, so therefore it says that the strap should at least be a tefach and then use 3 tefachim because it's doing the minimum. Right, but the lavud straps they're very small. They're certainly not a tefach, right? But they use 4 or 5 of them. So then, therefore, that gets you up above 10. Right. Anyways, so fine. So that's the first case in the Mishnah. Makifin bekanim. Yeah, that's where we left off. Yeah, makifin bekanim. Now this is the other way around. This is taking reeds and putting them this way, right? Makifin bekanim. As long as you don't have in between each reed 3 tefachim. This basically is those, a fence that has metal, the fence outside Shayosha, right? And I think Darchei also, no, the fence that the government gave for the security fence, right? It's got these long poles, right? And there's a name for this fence? I don't know. Whatever it is. So basically, that fence, since it's within 3, right, those beams are within 9 inches of each other, right? Then therefore, that would act as a perfectly fine fence for an eruv, right? Even though most of it is open space, but since it's all within lavud of each other, then it's considered enclosed. So
like a wall banister.
What do you say? Like a banister, right? Very good. Shmuley Sugar. Yeah, well, Shmuley can weigh in on this one. He's the expert on that. Right, a banister. Very good. Thank you. Right, so b'shiyar, but the Mishnah says b'shiyara dibru, divrei Yehuda. We're only going to allow this by a caravan. We're not going to allow this for a regular eruv. Right? It's not only by a shiyara. It's the reason why we said by a caravan was because b'hayva, that's the normal scenario where you're going to put up these reeds because you don't have an eruv. You're middle of nowhere. You're middle of an open field. You take these reeds, you stick them into the ground every 9 inches, and then that makes you eruv. But really, you could do it at home too. It doesn't have to be necessarily a shayara. Right? Then the Mishnah continues. He disagrees with both. He says a mechitza needs to have shesi and eruv. It needs to be this way. It can't just have one. It can't just have poles this way. It can't just have poles this way. They got to intersect.
Is
right?
the first
to be a mechitza.
What? Is the first man the Ummah saying when you buy your house, you should have a sukkah that has real walls. Don't do all the halachic walls. If you get stuck with a caravan, then you have to do it. But when you're home, make a sukkah like a mensch.
Very good. Very good. So I'm pretty sure it's a Beferish Ramah that says don't do these shticks. You should not want to have lavud, and you shouldn't do all these. You should. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's a Ramah that says it. Yeah, so very good. So they disagree and they say it could be one of two. It could either be this way, it could be this way, one or the other. Okay, so Amar Rav Nuna, Amar Rav. Harei Amru, I'm in Meruba ala Paretz B'Shesi. Right? If you have I'm in Meruba ala Paretz B'Shesi, you have the Aymed. Right? If there's more space by the what do you call it? How do you type Shesi again? I want to make sure I have it right.
Vertical.
Vertical. Thank you. Right.
Vertical. Okay.
Right. Yeah. So it's vertical, right? Then it's Aymed Meruba ala Paretz B'Shesi, Havi Aymed. If there's more Aymed than Paretz by Shesi, then that's considered like Aymed. So by Rav Amnuna be'erev, what about be'erev? Right? What about the horizontal? Right? Do we say the same thing? Some Rabbi Toshma Shir Chavalim V'Ovyan Yasser al Tefach. Right? What did our Mishna say? That the measurement of the ropes and the thickness has to be more than a tefach. Right? Shir Kol Asar Tefachim. That the combination of the space in between these strings and the space of lavud in between should rise above 10 tefachim. So, and if that's true, lamali yasser al tefach. Why does the rope have to be more than a tefach? Let him make it less than 3 and a rope of a mashahu, right? Then what? Take again. You're doing less than 3. Let's start from the ground up, right? Less than 3, then use a rope of any amount. Then another one, pachus mishloisha v'chevel mashu, less than 3 and a chevel of mashu. Now you're up to 6. Pachus me'arba v'chevel mashu, and then use less than 4 and a chevel mashu, right? Because we're trying to say that Aymed doesn't have to have Aymed Rova parts. Then the Gemara says, "V'tizbara, that's true. Pachus me'arba hechi makom. Where are you putting the one that's less than 4 tefachim? Imakom latatai. If you put it on the bottom." Even Reb Shimon Gamliel, we said, who holds that lavud as 4 tefachim, says not on the bottom because the gedi could get under it and it eliminates your wall. If you put it on the top, excuse me. So the high gisa, right? We had this before. If it's going to be on the top, then the problem is that above the, again, you had 3, and then 4. So then you have a space of 4, and then above that you have till the sky. So that's going to make it what we call, they're going to have the air on this side of that string and the air on the other side, and it's going to be mavatalit. So that's not going to work either. And if you put it in the middle, it's going to be aymin meruba ala paretz from two sides. And then what are you going to have to say? You're going to have to say that that when the aymin is meruba parts on both sides, meaning on the top you're going to have 3 tefachim, and on the bottom 3 tefachim, in the middle 4 tefachim, right? Then you're going to have to say that is aymin, right? So that wouldn't we don't say that. So therefore you can't bring any rise from a Mishnah. This is Rav Amnuna's question. Going to Isi Machzelis, the Havizainu Mashu, right? Now another wild case. You take a Machzelis, is a mat that really is 7 tefachim and change long. The Chokak Ba Gimel, and you chop off 3. The Shavak Ba Dalid, which will leave you with 4 tefachim of mat umashu and a chop. And then what you do is you put it less than 3. Within less than 3. So basically, you have 4 tefachim of mat, 3 tefachim which is lavud, and then you have 1 tefach or around there of mat. So Rav Ashi on mechitza tluya, that's the way he says is the pshat, is the question. Rav Ashi Amar, the Rav Ashi is a different question. Mechitza tluya ibayle. He was asking about a mechitza that's hanging. To the bottom of Rav Tavla meirav. Like Rav Tavla asked Rav, mechitza tluya ma'al shetata bechurva. Right? We had this in Shabbos. We had this a few days ago. Right? If you have a mechitza tluya, right, you have a destroyed house. For some reason, the top wall survived and the bottom part of the wall didn't survive. So, what's the story with that? Which Amalei ein mechitza tluya materas ela b'mayim. Right? We said a mechitza tluya doesn't help because a goat can go under it. As long as that wall ends more than 3 tefachim off of the ground, then it's no good. Right? But by water we did say. We said, but mayim kalu shekilucham b'mayim. Right? By water, we said that there was a kula. As long as you have a wall of 10 tefachim, you can now take a bucket, put it through those. Right, you have a porch on the water. Right, here we go. You went, instead of going to Hershey, what you did is you had a hotel right over the water, and you wanted to fill up water on Shabbos. So off your porch, as long as you had a wall of 10 tefachim, then we look at it like it goes all the way down to the water, even though if that was over land, we would not allow it because it's more than 3 tefachim from the ground. But for water, they were makel. Fine. Makibim b'kanim, you can surround it with reeds. The shiara in, so the Gemara seems to say, right, that's only works for a caravan. The shiara in b'yachid loy, it works with shiara, but not for a yachid. Vatani Yehuda, I'm a kol mechitza Shabbos loy yitiru liyachid yosef beis hasayim. We are not going to allow for yachid, right, an eruv more than beis hasayim. Yeah. Which is mash, meaning what's a beis hasayim? Meaning you can't just make an eruv around land that's not livable. I think Aaron Kavin brought that up about with the golf course yesterday. But you can't just make an eruv wherever you want with it not livable. The maximum you're going to get is beis hasayim, which is 5,000 square amos, right?
What's the difference? What's the difference between going in the wood with a camper and
no, because you're living there. We're going to see. Very good, Simon. That's good. The Gemara is going to discuss that. But
you could theoretically park a camper on a what do you call it? A golf course and do the same thing.
Oh, that's true. But you would only be able to encircle an area that you need to live. You can't just go make it way far out that has no shaykhs to you. It has to be. We only allow eruvin for places that are going to need it to be lived with. Not.
Yeah, but that's very subjective, isn't it? Meaning like
yeah. You're 100% right. Well, let's see how the Gemara goes. Right, the Gemara is going to discuss it. But whatever it is, but he is allowing these. He says you don't allow for beis hasayim, but you are allowed to do this reads every 3 tefachim for a yachid. That's the bottom line. So it's not just a shiara, it's not just a caravan. Right? We said a case, right, that Rav Nachman or Rabbi Bar Abaye said it's referring to where they're allowing enough place to have all whatever it is that you need, right? Meaning he's only making it possible if it's more than the place that you need. So here too, it's only to give to them enough place to run around or whatever it is. Now the Gemara is going to say what this case is. What case were they talking about? Any mechitza, right? This was one of the shitas in the Mishna. Any mechitza doesn't have shesi and eruv. Both ways is not a mechitza. Did Rabbi Yehuda say this? Tanya, echad yachid ve'echad shiara, and whether it's a yachid or whether it's a caravan, meaning a bunch of people l'chavalim, right? You can use ropes to make an eruv. Uma bein yachid l'shiara. So then, what's the difference between a yachid and a shiara? So why are you saying as two different categories, right? Yachid nice and like beis hasayim. A yachid, if it's a guy by himself, we give him 2 sa, right? Meaning if you're using these shtick walls of just reeds stuck in, we're only going to allow him to have 2 sa. Shnayim, 2 people, nice and then beis hasayim. We're going to give them 2, right? I'm sorry, we can also give them two, right? The same amount of space. Gimel, nasu shiara, but if it's 3 different people camping, then nice by base sheish. Yeah, you're going to give them 6, right? Because 2 sasayim for each person. That's what Rabbi Yehuda says. Whether it's a yachid or a shiara, they agree, and you're allowed to put in eruv wherever you want. As long as you don't have 2 sa open, meaning where nobody's using anything. But bottom line is, you see, Rabbi Yehuda does allow it for a yachid, even though it's not shesi eruv. So Rav Nachman, no, when Rabbi Yehuda was saying that they have to have enough space, right? He's saying that you can't use these shvacha eruvs of just poles, right? that you can only use them in places where they actually need the space. Anything more than that, you're not allowed to, right? But if you're doing a regular city eruv where they need it, then you're allowed to use these walls, which is what we pasken. Meaning from the Gemara, the Gemara's Havamina was Rabbi Yehuda only allows these walls if you're stuck out at who knows where, and then only for parts that you need. And we're saying no. We're saying that when they allow these walls, that's only in a big area that's not necessary. But if it's part of a city, then you're allowed to, not a city, shiara, whatever it is, a bunch of people, then you're allowed to use these types of things. Okay, I hope we made this slightly understandable or not. If not, I apologize, and we'll stop here. All right. All right, we have a good night. Mazel tov to Elio Ikavik, his son Yaakov put on tefillin today, so we should have a lot of nachas.
Thank you very much.
Mazel.
Thank you.
Also.
Yeah. All right.
All right. Why are we making this year earlier and earlier?
No, it's just tonight. I got to drive to the city now, so I wanted to make a little. My son got to yeshiva tomorrow, so I wanted to at least get him to home at a half normal time.
When do you suddenly care about being there the first day? I don't get it.
That's the only day I care about, Naftali. And I don't care about it either. If it was up to me, he'd not go till next week. But you get nervous a little bit. You want to make sure you get a good spot, or the one near the door.
A good locker. Yeah.
Correct. I don't know, good locker. You're not there enough to need a locker.
All right.
What's the schedule for tomorrow morning?
9 o'clock. 9 o'clock. That's the show.